was that utility guy that could make different segments, didn't have to be in a storyline, but the persona of don't piss me off fit in the attitude era.
Right. I'm going to play a classic clip. You were building kind of an angle with China, and as the character at the time was very anti-women, heel. So I want to play the clip.
Now, we got to be politically correct.
Well, this is 98, 99.
Okay.
So this is way, way, way back. So let's set this up and
I got you.
Put it in the timeline or time frame that it is. But get your reactions and your thoughts, because that is a hell of a clip, a hell of a piece of business.
Now, back in your day, women knew their role. They knew their place. I mean, the boys played with the boys, and the girls played with the girls. I mean, you wouldn't have been caught dead in a ring wrestling a man, would you?
Well, I didn't. But it's only because the so-called men knew that I would kick their ass, just like China's gonna kick your ass.
All right, here we go. Oh, here we go. Oh, what a shot. Shot heard around the world.
Look at the people.
It gets better, you know.
Run in, you old bag. Come on.
The guitar gets wrapped around the arm. Start working at the end of the figure four. Set it in deep. Big sell.
Classic TV.
Classic TV.
Come on now. Jarrett's vicious.
You'll be talking, you got a question.
No. Well, Bubba had a little story a while back when he was on the show, and he said, if you're going to do business with those two women, you better bring it.
Yes.
And so did y'all have that meeting, or did they have any words with you?
And look, the unique story about the whole Moolah guitar shot, when we got to TV that day, and look, Moolah had been around, and she had always shared stories about Christine Jarrett. She called my grandmother. I called her Teeny, but it was Christine to her. And so I knew kind of what to expect. And then, Creative laid it out. We're going to do this. I knew it was coming. And Moolah walked up to me and said, let me tell you something, young man. And I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, if you don't knock the hell out of me, you're going to regret it. And I just smiled at her and I said, I'll never forget it too. I said, you really mean that, don't you, Moolah? She said, you damn right I do. And then May was sitting there and she hits me like this and she says, yeah, you better cinch in that four. I mean, they were characters. Yeah. They don't make them like her anymore. But They don't. Moolah and May, hats off to them, because they knew their role, and Vince and how he was crafting the story. And you just looking at that tape back, that again, without China, and this is long before there was divas and knockouts and women's division and a Charlotte Flair. It's China that looked better than hell, all of us.
Yeah.
So how are we going to draw money with her? And then you started piecing together, and Road Dogg and Lawler and the puppies and then Miss Kitty, just kind of that whole picture that you see. You have two old women laid out with a figure four and a guitar, and you got two other ladies, and I'm the male chauvinist, but the box office of it, but in everybody's mind, you can just feel the people going, China's going to kick his ass. We know it. It worked. It's the classic Attitude Era moments that to this day, I mean, you got to sort of give it props. I don't know if Broken Skull Sessions would be existing had that Attitude Era and how the product was presented and how it affected pop culture.
So there's going to be the business to be done of working with China. When first presented with this idea and the outcome, how did you receive it?
I loved it. I didn't look, when they first presented it to me, I'm up for anything because the character was hot. I had figured 4 different folks. I had done different things. I knew that we were on a roll, and I'm not the biggest guy. I'm not 6'4", 280. I'm basically on the roster. I was on the smaller end. I'm a bump taker. I can talk. They've got 2 valets with me. This is going to work. And then as they kept episodically telling it, I knew he was getting bigger and getting bigger and getting bigger. And I'm like, wow, we're going to do this at a pay-per-view. it's going to move the needle. I just had the feeling into it that it was a box office attraction, not just on the card.
So you were down with doing business, but there was also business due to the fact that your contract was expiring.
Yeah, and that's, look, not to get in the weeds, I thought I was going to get a big bump in pay. I'll say that diplomatically. And that just wasn't coming. The bump in pay wasn't coming. And the character, it wasn't main event status. I know it wasn't, it wasn't Rocky and you and others, but I was way up the card and I was producing. I was the heel on the side that I could, not just utility, I could get the other guys over. I just thought for sure my bump in pay would come, especially as hot as the character was, but it wasn't coming, and it wasn't coming, and it wasn't coming. And man, we got down with inside a month, and I just kind of looked at myself and looked at my family and just said, I'm doing myself a disservice, because if they're not going to pay me today, they're never going to pay me.
Right. So, I mean, did you work it out, not even work yourself into a shoot, but just become a little agitated and like, hey man, what's up with these guys? So they not value myself as much as I value myself?
Yes. Here's something, almost a running thread here. Had my dad communicated to you way back in about communication's vital. Had I communicated with Vince, and Vince told me on the phone when I walked out in Nashville in 95, and when we reconnected 6 months later, Vince gave me the quote, well, Jeff, if you tell me it's partly cloudy, I'm going to expect a effing hurricane. You didn't communicate that to me. And I'll put that all on me. And as we've gotten older, communication in any relationship, business, personal, whatever it may be, communication. I wish I would have gone to Vince. And I know this is right before he went public. He was going from private to public. He was flying literally all over the world selling to investment bankers. So not only was he doing Raw and SmackDown, he was taking his company public. So I was dealing with Jim Ross pretty much exclusively, and Jim's got a finite budget, and he's got to do his job, and he's got to do what needs to be done. But it got into a situation, I think you said just a second, work to shoot. I did get agitated because I'm like, if they don't pay me, I wish. Look, but everything's turned out all right in my career, but I didn't over-communicate. I'm a big over-communicator. I didn't over-communicate and say, hey, dude, Vince, because when he did call me, it was too late. I'd already signed.
Yeah, I know. And, going back to your thing about communication, man, communication is paramount. And I look at the camera and say that to talent because, I mean, I wish I would have communicated better with Vince back in the day when, I had my issues about doing the favors for Brock that day. All I had to do was show up at the building that day and talk things over, but I just took my ball and went home.
There you go.
But it is all about communication. So
we're young, dumb, and full of, but it's all about, it's just growing, man. But when I look back over my career, and I don't want to jump on your timeline here, every screw up I've done, I'll take full responsibility. It's complete lack of communication on my part and getting in my head. I got in my head that, how much hotter am I going to get? I've hit Moolah, this and that. They're booing me out of the building. Look, there's the world belt. Back in those days, a little different. And then there's the IC title. I got the IC title. I got the number 2 title. I think I deserve a little more money. And maybe I did, but I didn't give it enough chance to negotiate.
And we can keep going down a rabbit hole, but you've covered this really in depth on your podcast with Conrad. So I'd refer to people there to get the long story because y'all lay out all the brass tacks.
Yes, sir.
In detailed fashion.